You know that special kind of rage a person has when they've been caught red-handed but are absolutely 100% convinced they're the victim. Yeah, I got a front row seat to that glorious implosion last Tuesday. So I work a pretty mundane front desk job at a municipal building. Most days are a blur of paperwork and redirecting people to the right department. The phone rings, and I go into my usual customer service autopilot. City Services, how can I help you? A man's voice, already crackling with indignation, barks back, I need to file a formal complaint. One of your workers was incredibly rude to me. Disgraceful behavior. Here we go again. Okay, sir, can you tell me what happened? He launches into this whole tirade about how he was driving near the old mill district, and some road workers started screaming at him for no reason. He's talking a mile a minute, painting himself as this poor, innocent motorist just trying to get to his destination. I let him finish his rant, giving him all the patient nods and I sees he needs. When he finally winds down, I give him my most helpful, gentle let-down voice. I understand your frustration, sir, but our office doesn't handle public works. You'll actually need to contact the street department for that. They're in the building next door. There's a beat of silence. Number, I'm here now. You're the city, you'll handle it. Well, okay then. A few minutes later, the man himself storms through our doors. He was exactly as I pictured. Mid-50s, expensive but wrinkled polo shirt, and a face flushed with the kind of entitlement that's been brewing for decades. He stomps up to my desk and slams a palm down. Right, the road workers, on Mill Street. I want their names and I want them disciplined. I pull up the city's work schedule on my computer, mostly just to humor him. Okay, sir, let me just check the work orders for that area. I type for a moment, then look up with a placid smile. Ah, I see the issue. The work on Mill Street is actually being handled by a private paving company, not city employees. So, technically, they don't work for us at all. I thought his head was going to pop off. His face went from pink to a deep, alarming shade of crimson. What do you mean, not your employees? That's a city street. Your lack of responsibility is appalling. I want you to call them. I want you to fix this. My taxes pay your salary, you work for me. He was practically shouting now, and a few people in the waiting area were starting to stare. I just held his gaze, kept my voice calm and level, and asked him a simple question. Sir, in your story, you mentioned they started yelling after you went around the barrier. Is that right? He puffed out his chest. Yes, I just nudged past the road closed sign. There was plenty of room. It was a ridiculous overreaction. And that's when the trap sprung. I leaned forward slightly, my customer service smile gone, replaced by something much colder. So, just so I'm clear, I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper. You ignored clearly posted road closed signs, drove your vehicle through a marked construction barrier, and entered a live work zone where men were operating heavy machinery. The air went out of him. I could literally see the righteous indignation deflating like a cheap balloon. His crimson face went pale. The gears were turning, and the picture he was seeing was no longer one of him as the victim. I continued, my voice still quiet but sharp. Sir, do you have any idea how incredibly dangerous that is? You didn't just violate a traffic regulation. You actively endangered the lives of those workers. Frankly, they had every right to yell at you. The only complaint that should be filed here is by their foreman against you. He just stared at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. The realization of what he just admitted, so proudly in a government building, washed over him. He went from rage to sheer, abject panic in about 3 seconds. He stammered, eyes wide. He didn't even try to argue. He just mumbled a barely audible, sorry to have bothered you, turned on his heel, and practically sprinted out of the office. I watched him go, then leaned back in my chair and allowed myself a small, satisfied chuckle. Some days, working a boring desk job has its perks.
Before we get into the last story, and trust me, it's the wildest one yet, make sure to subscribe. You won't want to miss the next one.
You know how sometimes buying a house comes with a few unexpected quirks? Ours came with a beautiful backyard, a surprisingly leaky faucet we didn't spot in the inspection, and a woman demanding payment for shoes from a guy we barely knew. Yeah, you read that right, shoes. Last fall, my wife and I finally snagged our dream home, a perfect little spot, sun-drenched, exactly what we'd worked for. We were ecstatic. But as we learned, every dream house seems to come with its own pre-installed layer of weirdness. For us, that weirdness was named Robert, the previous owner. I met Robert briefly at an open house. Nice enough guy, seemed a bit floaty. He was moving out of the country, he said, chasing some grand adventure. But he also gave off this vibe of having 100 loose ends he was just hoping would magically tie themselves up as he flew across the Atlantic. He talked a lot, rambling about all sorts of things, and in one of those tangents he mentioned a woman named Laquanda, said he owed her money. For shoes. I remember thinking, shoes. That's oddly specific. I shrugged it off as just one of Robert's many stories. What did I care, right? I was buying his house, not his life story. Fast forward a few weeks. We've moved in, boxes are everywhere, and we're in that blissful state of new home chaos. One afternoon, I find a letter tucked into our storm door. Not in the mailbox, mind you, but shoved right into the crack, like someone wanted to make sure we definitely saw it. The handwriting was a little frantic. It was from Laquanda. The letter was a polite but firm demand for the money Robert owed her, specifically for the shoes. My first reaction was a confused chuckle. Seriously, this is following us. I penned a polite reply explaining that Robert no longer lived at this address. We were the new owners. We had no idea where he was. It seemed like a straightforward, logical response. Oh, how naive I was. A few days later, another letter appeared in the storm door. Same handwriting, a little more insistent this time. Laquanda's second letter basically said she didn't believe me. She wrote something along the lines of, Robert isn't the type to share his problems with strangers, so I know he wouldn't tell you where he's going. She insinuated that I was somehow covering for him, or that I must know more than I was letting on. She then reiterated her demand for payment, mentioning the specific brand of shoes and the exact amount. My initial amusement quickly turned to irritation. This wasn't some friendly neighbor mistaking me for Robert. This was someone actively refusing to accept reality and demanding money from me based on a bizarre premise. The audacity of it, pushing letters into my door, demanding my money for Robert's debt. The entitlement was starting to bubble up. So I wrote back. My second reply was significantly less polite. I dropped any pretense of gentle explanation. I basically told her, in no uncertain terms, that I was not Robert. I did not know Robert. I was not responsible for Robert's debts, and she needed to stop contacting my private residence. I informed her that any further communication would be considered harassment. I didn't mince words. I sealed it, walked it to the mailbox myself, and hoped that was the end of it. And you know what? I think it finally clicked. I haven't received a single letter since. The storm door has remained gloriously free of shoe debt demands. It seems Laquanda has, at long last, grasped the rather obvious concept that I am not Robert, and my new dream home is not a debt collection agency for his quirky, shoe-related financial woes. So that's the story of how our new house came with a side of strangers' shoe debt and a lesson in setting boundaries. Just another day in the life, I guess, dealing with the fallout of other people's unresolved issues.
Ever had one of those days where karma decides to serve up a 5-star meal just for you? Mine came with a side of Walmart, and boy, was it satisfying. Buckle up, folks, because this one's a classic. It was a pretty typical Saturday. I was just minding my own business, cruising through the detergent aisle at Walmart, humming a little tune, when I heard a voice practically bark behind me. "Excuse me, sir, you there? Can you help me find some items?" Now, I'm not an employee, never have been, but I'm usually happy to help someone lost or looking for something specific. So, I turned, a friendly smile on my face, ready to point them towards the canned goods or whatever. That smile quickly faded when I saw the woman in question. She had this permanent scowl etched on her face, like she'd just smelled something foul, and she was practically vibrating with impatience. Before I could even open my mouth, she shoved a crumpled list into my chest. "I need these items, and I'm in a hurry." "Oh, sorry," I started, taking a step back from the abruptness. "I don't actually work here. I'm just doing my own shopping." Her scowl deepened, her eyes narrowing to slits. She looked me up and down as if my very existence was an affront. "Don't give me that," she snapped, a finger jabbing at me. "You're just lazy. I saw you wandering around, clearly doing nothing. Now stop wasting my time and help me." My friendly demeanor evaporated faster than a puddle in the desert. Lazy? Me? I was literally just about to buy laundry soap. My annoyance spiked. "Ma'am, for the last time, I am not an employee," I stated, trying to keep my voice even, though my jaw was starting to clench. "I can't help you with your shopping list." She didn't hear me, or rather, she chose not to. Her face went from scowl to full-on purple rage. "Then I want to speak to your manager right now. You are absolutely useless, and I will not be treated this way." Her voice was definitely rising now, echoing off the high shelves, drawing a few curious stares from other shoppers. I took another step back, trying to disengage. This wasn't worth it. I turned to walk away, but she was like a shadow, right on my heels, still yelling about how I was lazy, how I needed to be fired, how she was going to have my job. I could feel people staring, and a flush of uncomfortable embarrassment crept up my neck. This was getting ridiculous and, frankly, a little unnerving. I just wanted to buy my damn detergent. Desperate to lose her, I ducked down an entirely different aisle, weaving around a display of seasonal candy, and practically sprinted to the frozen foods section. I peered around a corner, making sure she wasn't following, my heart thumping a bit faster than it should have been. I stayed hidden for a good 5 minutes, until I was sure the coast was clear, before cautiously continuing my shopping. By the time I finally paid and left the store, a mixture of exasperation and disbelief washed over me. Who does that? Accuses a stranger of being lazy and then follows them around, screaming. I actually chuckled then, a genuine, albeit slightly rattled laugh. It was almost comical in its audacity. Fast forward a week. I was dressed in a suit, sitting in a conference room at my company's corporate office, not Walmart, thank God, preparing to interview candidates for a new management position. The door opened, and the next applicant walked in. I looked up, pen poised, ready to greet them. My eyes met hers. And for a solid, agonizing second, the entire world stopped. Her face, previously a picture of nervous anticipation, utterly drained of color. Her jaw went slack. The small smile she'd pasted on for the interview crumbled. It was her, the entitled Walmart woman. My own brain scrambled, a little mischievous spark igniting in the chaos. I had to fight hard to keep a straight face. "Julian," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper, a mix of shock and pure, unadulterated horror. I couldn't help but let a tiny, knowing smirk play on my lips. "Well, good morning, MS, let's just call her Karen," I said, extending my hand, my voice calm, professional, and entirely too pleasant. "Please have a seat. Thanks for coming in today." She sank into the chair opposite me, her eyes wide, still fixated on mine. She looked like she'd seen a ghost, a very well-dressed, slightly smug ghost. "So," I began, leaning forward, pretending to consult her resume, "it says here you have extensive experience in customer service and retail operations. Tell me about that. What do you consider your greatest strengths when dealing with, shall we say, challenging customers?" She swallowed hard, her voice a little shaky. Yes. I've worked in retail for many years. I'm very good at problem-solving and, de-escalation." I held her gaze, a tiny, almost imperceptible tilt of my head. "Interesting. Any particularly memorable customer interactions come to mind? Perhaps an experience where a customer mistakenly thought you were an employee or vice versa?" Her face went beet red, then almost purple again. She stammered, tried to deflect, tried to change the subject, but the blood had clearly drained from her brain. Every word she tried to force out died in her throat. The confidence she'd had walking in was utterly shattered. It was a beautiful thing to witness. The interview, as you can imagine, didn't last very long after that. She certainly didn't get the job. As I watched her leave, head bowed, I felt a deep, profound sense of satisfaction. Not just because she was denied a job she likely wasn't qualified for anyway, but because, for once, someone like her actually got a taste of their own medicine. She'd been so quick to judge, to demand, to insult, without ever bothering to listen. And now, that very arrogance had come back to bite her right where it hurt, her career. It was almost poetic. Sometimes the universe just gets it right. And sometimes you just happen to be there to witness the perfectly timed delivery.
Here's another one I think you'll really enjoy.